Golden sunlight seeped through the expansive windows of the Maple Street Cafe, painting the wooden floor in warm, elongated rectangles. It was one of those rare Tuesdays when the world seemed to exhale, slowing its hurried pace just enough to let people linger. The air carried the comforting traces of roasted coffee beans and warm pastries, while a child's muffled giggle echoed from the back before fading into silence. Ethan sat at the long wooden bench by the window, his 2 children curled beside him. Mila, his younger daughter, had already settled onto his lap, her curly head nestled against his chest as though seeking the safest harbor in the world. Her older son, Noah, remained still, his chin resting on his folded arms, eyes fixed on the street outside with the same thoughtful intensity his mother had passed down. Ethan had learned to recognize that expression, and it always tightened his chest in a way he'd grown accustomed to carrying quietly. He ordered 2 hot chocolates and a black coffee, stirring his slowly, though the warmth of the liquid barely reached his lips. 14 months had passed since the divorce was finalized, 14 months of dropping kids at school, shopping for groceries, and whispering bedtime stories with a voice that strained to sound steady. He was doing his best, and most days he believed it. But some mornings, like this one, he simply sat with his children in the quiet hum of the cafe and let himself breathe. That's when the door swung open. She stepped in with deliberate care, as if cradling something fragile, not an object but herself. Sonia was young, perhaps 26 or 27, her blonde hair loosely tied back, wearing a blue shirt that had seen better days. Black forearm crutches supported her weight, their design hugging her elbows with quiet efficiency. Beneath her left knee, where a leg should have been, a sleek mechanical limb met the floor, its joints moving with practiced precision. She moved with the unhurried grace of someone who had learned to ask without pleading, to navigate spaces not built for her. Her eyes, light brown and cautious, scanned the room. The cafe wasn't full, but the layout, narrow gaps between chairs, a step she'd bypassed by entering through the side door, scattered seats in corners or beside occupied tables, made finding a place difficult. She paused at Ethan's table where a narrow gap beside Noah remained. She stood there, crutches steady, then met his gaze. "Excuse me," she said, her voice soft but steady. "Can I sit here?" Ethan looked up, his coffee untouched, then at the space beside Noah, then back at her. He didn't answer right away. Something flickered across his face, thought, hesitation, then resolve. Mila turned, her eyes wide with innocent curiosity. Then Ethan pushed himself up, gently relocating Mila to his feet. He handed Noah his coffee and slid his hot chocolate across the table. Together they rearranged the bench, pulling it slightly outward, moving his bag from the edge and scooting a chair aside to create a path wide enough for Sonia's crutches. "There," he said. "Take as much space as you need." It was a small adjustment, yet Sonia stood motionless for a heartbeat, her expression shifting in a way that defied description. Not surprise, exactly. It was something deeper, like a wall she'd painstakingly erected over years of exclusion loosening just enough to let warmth in. Her eyes glistened. She blinked, then smiled, a quiet, bittersweet thing. "Thank you," she murmured, gratitude threading through her words. She eased onto the bench, resting her crutches against the wall, and set her small bag on the table. The tension in her shoulders eased, a long-held breath finally released. Mila, transfixed, leaned toward her father. "Daddy," she whispered, "she has a special leg." Ethan opened his mouth, but Sonia beat him to it. "I do," she said to Mila, nodding gently. "It helps me walk." Girl pondered this with solemn gravity. "Does it hurt?" "Not anymore," Sonia replied. "It did for a while, but now it's just part of me." Mila seemed content, leaning back against Ethan as the moment dissolved into ordinary warmth. Ethan apologized softly. "Sorry, she asks a lot of questions." "No," Sonia said, "it's fine. Kids ask the real ones. I don't mind." They sat in silence for a while. Sonia ordered tea, cradling the cup with both hands as though drawing warmth from its steam. A delivery truck rumbled past outside, and Noah sketched shapes on his cup's condensation. Eventually, Ethan ventured, "Do you live around here, Ms. Ryan?" "I just moved to the neighborhood," she said, 3 weeks ago. "Still figuring out which places are easy to get into." She said it plainly, without bitterness. "This one's pretty good, wide door, no steps." "I never thought about that," Ethan admitted. "Most people don't," she said gently, "until they have to." She didn't elaborate on her loss, nor did he press, but she shared fragments, an accident, a long recovery, the ache of losing something that had been hers without warning. She spoke of relearning to walk not as triumph but as negotiation, a recalibration of the world from a different angle. Some days it feels normal, she said. Some mornings I reach for something that's gone and I have to remember all over again. Ethan was quiet. Then, I think I understand that. Not the same way, but I know what it's like to reach for something that used to be there. She studied him, he avoided her gaze, and neither spoke further, yet something passed between them in that silence, a recognition too profound for words. Noah, who'd been listening in his quiet, careful way, glanced up. "My mom moved away last year," he said. Sonia's expression softened. "That must have been hard." He shrugged, the way boys do when things are too heavy to name. "It's okay," he said. Ethan felt something shift in his chest, something he'd held too tight for too long. "Yeah," he whispered. "We are." They lingered longer than planned. Mila dozed against Ethan's arm, her hot chocolate half finished. Noah showed Sonia his drawings, small animals, cars, a lopsided rocket. She praised it warmly, and he laughed for the first time that morning. Later, she spoke of her work, writing for small publications while crafting a larger piece about urban design and exclusion. Her eyes brightened when she spoke of it, and Ethan found himself truly listening. When they rose, Noah handed Sonia her crutches without being asked. She looked at him, gratitude clear in her gaze. "You're a good kid," she said. He turned red, mumbling a thanks before looking away. At the door, Ethan held it open. Sonia stepped out, pausing to turn back. "Thank you," she said, this time fuller, carrying more weight. "For moving the chair, and for just talking to me like a person." He nodded, the words settling into him like a stone finding its place. They exchanged numbers in the tentative way adults do when uncertain what they're asking for. Life, they knew, rarely announces itself. It arrives quietly, through an unopened door, wearing an ordinary blue shirt, asking the simplest question, "Can I sit here?" Ethan walked home with Mila asleep on his shoulder and Noah strolling beside him. He thought of how a moved chair, a little extra space, a few honest moments of being seen could shift the weight of another's day. He realized people often just needed to be met where they stood, unfixed, unpitied, unturned into a lesson, simply welcomed, given room. It was true for Sonia, learning to navigate a world not built for her. For Noah, learning to bear burdens without letting them harden him. For Mila, still young enough to ask without flinching. For himself, still discovering that being okay didn't mean pretending nothing hurt. It meant making space anyway, for others, for children, for himself. Sometimes the smallest acts carried the greatest weight. Sometimes offering a seat on a bench gave someone a feeling they hadn't known in years. And sometimes, without expectation, they returned something unexpected. Not grand gestures or noisy declarations, but a quiet assurance that kindness endured, that connection was still possible, that an ordinary Tuesday in a cafe on Maple Street could still surprise them with its warmth.